If you've been wondering whether Ketoconazole shampoo is actually worth using for hair loss, you're asking the same question everyone does. Search for it online, and within a few minutes, you'll come across two completely different opinions. Some people treat it like it's an underrated hair loss treatment. Others think it's nothing more than a dandruff shampoo with exaggerated reputation. The reason the argument never seems to end is that both sides are judging it by the wrong standard. Because whether Ketoconazole works or not depends on what you're actually expecting it to do. So by the end of this video, you'll know whether Ketoconazole is worth adding to your routine or whether you can skip it altogether. Let's start by looking at why Ketoconazole ended up in the hair loss conversation in the first place. Hi, I'm Trichologist Bobby Spence. I'm a certified trichologist and hair loss expert, and for the last 20 years, I've helped thousands of patients improve their hair growth as well as hair density. Ketoconazole is an antifungal. It was developed to treat fungal infections, and that's still the only officially thing it's approved for. So if it's not designed for hair loss at all, why is it one of the most talked about products in the hair loss community? Part of it is simple. It's a few dollars. It doesn't carry the risk most people associate with finasteride, and it doesn't come with the scalp irritation some people can actually get from using minoxidil. That alone makes people curious about it, but that question gets a lot more interesting once you notice who's actually being told to actually use it. You'd expect it only to come for people dealing with visible flaking, but in my practice, I regularly recommend it to patients whose scalp look completely clean. No flakes, no buildup, no irritation, and at a glance, the scalp looks completely normal. That only makes sense once you know something most people never get told. That's a condition called seborrheic dermatitis that can exist under the surface with zero visible signs. And when researchers actually looked at patients with pattern hair loss, seborrheic dermatitis showed up in over 40% of them, and some studies as high as 51%, compared to somewhere between 1 to 5% in the general population, which means you can have inflammation under the surface even if your scalp looks completely normal. So if hidden inflammation is common, the next question is, what actually are you doing to your hair? By itself, it isn't enough to cause pattern baldness, but if the follicle is already under pressure, inflammation can make the situation worse and can even reduce how well treatments like minoxidil are able to work, which means someone could be using minoxidil exactly as prescribed, doing everything right, and still getting the similar results than they should simply because something invisible is working against them the entire time. If that's the side effect of Ketoconazole that often gets overlooked, it's probably not the reason most people think the shampoo is helping in the first place. Because when people do give Ketoconazole credit, they almost always credit the wrong mechanism. The most common thing I hear is that Ketoconazole works because it blocks DHT, the same way finasteride does. It sounds like a tidy explanation. It's also partly true. Taken as a tablet, Ketoconazole really can lower testosterone and DHT throughout the body. That part's real, and it's exactly why that form is never used casually, but almost nobody is talking about a tablet. They're using Ketoconazole as a shampoo. That's when things start to make more sense. The theory is that if enough of it reaches deep into the scalp, it might lower DHT locally, the same as it does as a tablet. But so far, there's no research showing this actually happens, and that's a practical reason to be skeptical about it. A shampoo only on your scalp for a few minutes before you wash it off, so most of what you deliver stays on the top layer of the skin. Whether enough of it reaches the follicle underneath is genuinely unclear. On the other hand, a leave-on topical version of Ketoconazole sits on the scalp for hours instead of minutes. If there's a real local DHT effect worth having, that's where you'd expect to find it first, not just something you rinse down the drain. So if the evidence for Ketoconazole lowering DHT is still unproven, and inflammation only explains part of the picture. And that leaves one important question: what do people actually get when they use Ketoconazole? One study I keep coming back to compared 4 treatment combinations: finasteride with minoxidil, finasteride with Ketoconazole, finasteride alone, and minoxidil alone. Finasteride with minoxidil came out on top, which isn't surprising given how established both treatments are, but the combination of finasteride and Ketoconazole came in second, ahead of either drug used by itself, which means on its own, this shampoo isn't going to carry pattern hair loss. Stacked on top of something that's already working, it does seem to add something real. There's also a study people love to quote, comparing 2% Ketoconazole shampoo against 2% minoxidil, with results coming out fairly similar. Now, what usually gets left out of the conversation is that minoxidil sitting on your pharmacy shelf is 5%, not 2%. So that study isn't telling you this shampoo matches what you'd actually buy. It's telling you it matches a weaker version almost no one uses. So when you look specifically at topical ketoconazole, there just aren't that many studies yet. One study followed 6 men using the 2% ketoconazole lotion. Most saw some improvement and a couple improved quite a bit more. Another study compared ketoconazole head-to-head with topical minoxidil in women over 6 months. The results were similar, but the ketoconazole group reported fewer side effects. The results are promising, but the evidence is still limited enough that I wouldn't base a treatment decision on these studies alone. Which brings me to the actual question you came here for. If your scalp has no visible or hidden inflammation and you're only dealing with typical pattern hair loss, I wouldn't expect this shampoo to handle that by itself. That was never its job, and the data doesn't show it performing at the level it needs to alone. However, if you're already on finasteride or minoxidil, or there's any sign of an irritated, flaky, or sensitive scalp, that's exactly where this tends to earn its place. It's cleaning out something that may be quietly working against the treatment you're already using. Even then, how you use it changes everything. Rinsing it out 30 seconds barely gives it a chance. Leaving it on for 5 to 6 minutes before washing it out is closer to what the actual research tested, and that gap is the difference between using it as a real treatment or just washing your hair with something that happens to say medicated on the bottle. So the real answer isn't does it work or is it a waste of money? It's whether you're one of the people it was ever meant to help. But for a lot of people, that's not even why they were looking at something like ketoconazole in the first place. Like I mentioned earlier, they were trying to find something that outperforms minoxidil or finasteride. They were looking for something that doesn't come with the same trade-offs. Which naturally raises the next question, is there another approach to hair growth that doesn't rely on minoxidil, finasteride, or dutasteride at all? That's exactly what I break down in this video. So watch this next.